for themselves, for their families, for the students, and their entire school communities. And they're right. The district has an absolutely abysmal track record when it comes to addressing health and safety. Their facilities issues, largely exposed by this union and the media, have gone unchecked for too long. And now that we're amidst a global pandemic with new variants of the disease emerging and the vast majority of residents unvaccinated, think about that. Amidst the global pandemic, the like of which none of us has ever seen, the school district is hell-bent on forcing thousands of educators into unsafe buildings held together, in some cases quite literally, by duct tape. In fact, right behind me in Gompers Elementary School, dozens of classrooms are deemed unsafe for occupancy, meaning they have a 0 on the district's air balance report. You'll hear a bit more from educators and parents in a few minutes, and they can tell you what this all means to them. Their stories are powerful, and it's incumbent upon all of us to listen carefully to the people who know the Gompers community best, the students, the educators, and the families. We are also grateful to be joined by so many of our allies in this fight, and so let me turn it over to them. Our first speaker is a graduate of the Philadelphia public school system and a parent of a kindergartner here at Gompers School. I would like to ask Councilwoman Catherine Gilmore Richardson to come to the mic and tell you why she's here this morning. Councilwoman.
I'm here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Whew. Good morning, Philadelphia Federation of Teachers.
Good morning.
Now, I'm going to grade you all a C because I'm also a former teacher. So, good morning, Philadelphia Federation of Teachers.
Good morning.
I want to thank you all so much for being here. To Jerry, Hillary, Randy, we thank you so much for your support, Art, and all of you who are gathered here today. I could have never imagined when I entered these doors in 1989 as a student here at Gompers Elementary School that I would be back here today as the mother of a kindergartner here at Gompers Elementary School. But as a former teacher, as a mother, and as a council member, I'm angry. I'm angry because we should not put our teachers in this position, ever. We are at a critical moment, a moment that requires us to put our children first and the safety of our teachers and educators first. We can do both. Now, I know personally how hard it's been to work in this virtual environment. I've worked with my daughter every day, and her teachers have been stellar. Some of you are out here today, keeping young people, 6-year-olds, engaged on the computer. So I know we're all looking forward to the day where we can go back into our classrooms. But today is not that day. Today is not that day. We must ensure that we have airflow and air quality tests for every single classroom in the district that will be utilized. We must have a vaccination plan. Where's the vaccination plan for all of our teachers who are educating our young people? Now, we've been home for almost a year, and I know it's been difficult, but we all must maintain our safety as it relates to COVID-19. We can't allow our teachers and our families to put their families in jeopardy during the middle of a pandemic. So we are calling on all of our partners from the city to the school district to come up with a safety plan, to come up with a vaccination plan so we can allow our young people and our teachers to have an environment of trust when they return back to schools. And I stand here today in solidarity with our teachers and with all of you to ensure that we have all of that before we return. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Councilwoman. Our next speakers are teachers here at the Gompers School. First, we'll hear from Elonda Tolliver. Elonda?
Good morning, everyone. I am a school district employee and proud to say so. I've been with the school district for 34 years.
Bless you. Bless you.
I would like to say that my co-workers, this is a great staff here at Gompers, and we do want to work. We do want to come back, but we want to come back safely. That's all we're asking for, to come back safely. To know that the ventilation system is working here at not just our school, but all the schools. We're here to support and fight for one another. I'm so sad right now. I know that a lot of our parents, feeling so angry and, frustrated. But the thing is this, we want to work. We want to work safely. We want their children to be safe. We're not sure about what's going on. We're getting a lot of things left and right. Something here, something there. This is not good. I want to continue to work for the school district. I want to retire from the school district, and I want to do it safely. Miss O'Hanlon, could you please come? Okay.
Good morning. I'm here because the ventilation reports are not accurate. I want to make sure that our students, I'm sorry. I want to make sure our students and staffs are safe entering the buildings. Fans are no plan. Let's get that straight. And vaccinate to educate. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Elonda Tolliver. And the last speaker was Charmaine O'Hanlon. Yes. No, she didn't give her name, and I wanted the press to know who she is. Our next speaker is Council Member at Large, a huge fighter for public education, and a father of a child in our public schools, Council Member Derek Green.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. I want to thank Jerry Jordan, all of the teachers here from the Philadelphia Federation Teacher. Randy, thank you for being here always, and Arthur and Hillary. And I want to thank all the teachers from Gompers for being here this morning. Now, many people know that my mother taught in the school district for over 30 years. I'm also known as a TK, or a teacher's kid. And I say that affectionately because I know the dedication that teachers have on providing education to children in the school district of Philadelphia. They get up early, they stay up late, and they are dedicated to educating and caring for our children. And this pandemic has been something that none of us could ever expect it. And they are dedicated because they want to get back in the schools and do what they are trained to do. White Senate hearing or the meeting, and I'm seeing Mr. Roller and Miss Gale work with my son, trying to provide the best education that they can to my son and children all around the city of Philadelphia. Now, I've had an opportunity to go to Nebinger last week to see the fans, and the question that I have is why not allow the Philadelphia Federation teachers and parents and others to see the testing being done on these fans? Because people have a concern. They have a fear. This pandemic is real. We've lost hundreds of thousands of people in this nation, and people have a fear of this pandemic. And I'll also speak as a parent. As a child on the autism spectrum, we have a different type of classroom environment. We have an autism support teacher. We may have 1 or 2 aides or 2 TSS workers per child. So even with 4 children in a classroom, You're talking about a number of adults in that room. How are we going to make sure that they're going to be safe? That's why we need to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to make sure every child is safe and every teacher is safe, so we can get back to doing what we need to do, which is educate our children. And so that's why I am here as a proud TK, as a proud parent with a child in the school district, and making sure that we're doing all that we can to educate our children in a safe environment for those who really take care of the most precious asset that we have, which is our children. So I stand here with PFT and will always be with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilman. Our next speaker is the state representative of the 192nd District. That's the district that Gompers is in. Our state representative, Morgan Cephas.
Thank you.
Please. Thank you.
I know we're not supposed to hug, but you're a constituent.
I am.
Yes. I didn't know City Council Member Gilmore Richardson was going to tell the year that we both went to Gompers here. But I too had an opportunity to go to this institution. And the sad part is the same challenges that we were dealing with when we were younger, we are still dealing with today. And let's not forget that the PFT, the AFT, all of the teachers, Senator Vincent Hughes, we stood at these schools not just a year ago, 2 years ago, arguing about the environmental remediation that needed to be done in these buildings, fighting with the states, fighting on the city level to get more money into our schools to fix our water systems, to rid it of the lead and asbestos. Fast forward to today, adding a pandemic on top of the issue only exacerbates the challenges that we continue to face in our school buildings. So it is wrong for the School District of Philadelphia, the administration, to ask our teachers to go back, to ask our families to go back, to ask our students to go back in buildings that have already been left untaken care of. And it is horrible to put population against population, to put parents against teachers in this type of pandemic, in this challenging climate. So I thank you for constantly coming to our aid and standing up for what is right and standing up for what we need to do to ensure that we are keeping our families, our teachers, and especially our students safe during this difficult time. Now, we will be standing with you now, just as we stood with you 2 years ago, and we will continue this fight in ensuring that we, tag our appropriations chairman over there to bring back money to the city of Philadelphia to better protect our, no pressure, Senator. But this will be a top priority of ours as we go into appropriation season. We cannot forget, again, that young student, Chelsea, who talked about the differences in the schools, not just 10 blocks from here, but in Lower Merion Township, they do not have to worry about the challenges that we face here in the city of Philadelphia. So again, let's not forget the conversation we were just having, and let's make sure that we get all the dollars, all of the systems repaired that we need in order to keep our families, our teachers, and especially our children safe. So thank you for selecting Gompers Elementary School, and let's get together and join the fight. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, State Representative. Our next speaker is an advocate for quality public education who's been fighting for a long time and is a member now of City Council. Our next speaker is Councilwoman Kendra Brooks. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much.
Oh gosh, glasses and this mask doesn't work. Good morning, everyone. I kind of to Rep. Cephas, her conversation, and she talked about this is a long-going fight. I stand here first as a parent, then as a grandparent, then as an activist, and then as a council member now. And what I'm here to say is this fight we've had about safe, healthy school building has been ongoing. And then we add on a pandemic, right? So when we talk in my conversations about school reopening plan, my plan was if it was your building and you had to go to work and the occupancy levels were 0 or 2 in various rooms, would you go? And until everyone can say, yes, I would go, in good faith, I cannot stand by the plan that's currently set before us. A plan that we need for our city means that every building has safe air to breathe, free of what we already had, free of the lead and mold and asbestos that was already there, but also just free to breathe with clear ventilation so everyone can be safe in that building. Number two, we need to make sure we have a plan to make sure all school staff have vaccination. Keep in mind, some of our schools are in the hardest hit areas of the city, where families are already suffering the trauma from burying loved ones. Families that are already suffering the trauma of caring for loved ones due to COVID. We cannot expect people to trust us as government officials, as city officials, making decisions for them that we would not make for ourselves. So I stand with the teachers around the city and here at Gompers saying, don't enter the building if it's not safe. I stand with parents who refuse to send their children back in the schools that were already not safe. And I stand with us as a city as we fight for more funding to make sure that this problem is not an ongoing problem. Our children deserve better. Our teachers deserve better. And if we don't continue to fight for their well-being and being able to learn in safe, healthy environments, we have failed the children. So collectively, we have to create a plan that's safe. We have to create a plan that includes vaccination for all education staff, everyone in the building. And until we do that, the schools cannot open. I too would love for my children to go back to school. Keep in mind, I'm a city council person, I'm a mother and a grandmother who's taking care, like my colleague. I homeschool my grandchildren, which are in kindergarten and pre-K. I have a 6th grader, I have an 11th grader, and I work every day. So I understand what it's like. I'm with you guys. I understand the pain. But my children's life, I cannot put on a line. So I stand with you, and until this is done, we will continue to fight. Thank you so much.
And thank you so much, Councilwoman. Our next speaker is someone who knows a lot about facilities, who has been working for years to fight for improvements in the schools that our kids and our members work in. And he has been a tremendous, tremendous help to me as local president in fighting this battle. I'd like to have the president of the American Federation of Teachers Pennsylvania chapter come and give remarks. Arthur Steinberg.
Thank you, Jerry. Folks are going to have to back off and give me 6 feet because I cannot see with the mask on. So back up so I can clean my glasses and get going. All right, what can I tell you?
Okay, Art. Okay, Art.
Yeah, exactly what my kids say to me all the time. Okay. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for showing up this morning. Over the last 11 months, I've worked with our whole leadership, Jerry, the rest of our team, and Randy, our environmental scientists, and district officials to implement a plan that will allow teachers and kids and all educators to safely return to school buildings. That was 10 months ago that the AFT developed a plan, and we then built ours around that. We built ours from that and started to plan for a safe reopening. We did all this for one bottom line. Educators and kids want to be in classrooms, but they want to be there safely. We know many of our students rely on schools for more than just education. There's meals, there's psychological services, there's just the socialization that they need desperately. However, we are not going to go in just to allow someone to check off a box and an accomplishment that he opened schools. They must be safe. Now, nearly a year after the COVID-19 pandemic disrupted learning and development for kids everywhere, too little has been done to address the long-standing conditions such as poor ventilation, ancient heating and cooling systems, in our school buildings. 11 months with empty schools that the district should have been used to remediating lead, asbestos, mold, and readying buildings for a safe return. District leaders had 11 months, as I just said, to find a safe way to reopen in-person learning. But instead they opted for, and Jerry has stole my line, I have half-baked in here, and I couldn't think of another one to replace it with. This half-baked, unscientific approach that shows nothing but contempt for educators and school communities. Setting an arbitrary and unrealistic date to send educators back into schools while still being dangerously underprepared isn't just irresponsible, it's obscene. As public health experts, organizations like the Black Doctors COVID Consortium and our union have said over and over again, Black and brown communities have been disproportionately affected by both this virus and its economic and social fallout. District and city leaders, especially the administration, have a moral obligation to do better. There's no such thing as one district leader was recently quoted as saying is a good faith effort when it comes to people's lives. Either government does what it must do to protect staff and students, or it does not. To quote a former superintendent who was failed, by the way, trying hard in this instance is not good enough. As I've said from the beginning of this pandemic, we only have one chance to get this right. The city and district leaders must step up and do what is moral and get these schools open safely. Thank you.
Thank you, Arthur. Our next speaker is someone who goes to Harrisburg and fights to bring resources to Philadelphia, who fights for public education, and we are so happy that he's joined us this morning. State Senator Sharif Street.
Good morning. Good morning. You know, I wanted to be here because symbolically, this is the elementary school that I went to. We went to school here. I went to Gompers. Yep, Gompers, Steinberg. And much has already been said. But there are a few things that we need to make sure we have a vaccine, and we need to make sure that teachers are vaccinated as first responders, and that the vaccination of Philadelphia school teachers is a priority. There's no reason that with all the different folks that are getting vaccinated, that we aren't prioritizing the vaccination of our teachers. There's so much of the risk could be mitigated in that way. And there are a number of things we should be doing. Obviously, the facilities need to be up to the highest of standards. But it is unconscionable that in a city where we are receiving our vaccine and we have some control over the process, that we don't prioritize the vaccination of our teachers. After a teacher is vaccinated, within 6 to 8 weeks, depending on whether it's Moderna or Pfizer, a teacher can have built up a certain level of immunity. We should be prioritizing the vaccination of our teachers so that they can return to the classroom without having to worry about what happens if they're exposed. Just as it's essential that we vaccinate supermarket workers, and it's essential that we vaccinate police officers and medical workers, it is essential that we vaccinate our teachers. And so the president has promised that we're going to get a whole lot of vaccines soon. When we do that, but we need to make sure teachers are at the front of the line. But even more so, with the vaccine that we already have, which is dedicated to vaccinating our first responders, our essential workers, there's the education of our children is about as essential as anything that could exist. Our children are already far enough behind. We need to make sure that the teachers are vaccinated so that they can return to work in a safe manner. Mr. President, you have my full support. We got to make sure our teachers are safe. My mom was a teacher for 35 years, and I certainly, if she were to go, she's retired now, but if she were returning to the classroom, I would want her to be safe, and I want the same for every other teacher.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Street. Our next speaker really needs no introduction to anyone here. She has been an advocate for public education for as long as I've known her. And the Philadelphia Federation of Teachers has worked closely with her over the years. She is someone who gets the job done. And I am so proud to have her here and to say that Helen Gibb is someone that we know we can depend on. She is someone who was a teacher, so she understands what happens inside of a school building. She's a mother. Her children attended Philadelphia schools, and she could say, well, I've gone through it for a number of years, and I'm going to step back a little bit now that, my kids are where they are in life. But that's not Helen Gibb. Helen wants what's best for children. She wants what's best for the employees in the schools. She is one of the fiercest fighters that I know. It's my pleasure to ask Council Member Helen Gibb to come up and give us remarks.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to use the mic because I'm like, I got to talk to some of the teachers who are here. First of all, I thought I'd use the mic because that way I can talk to all the teachers who are out here. So I want to first of all thank and acknowledge all the Gompers teachers, family members, school staff who are out here today talking about what it means to stand up for children, to fight for decent public schools, and to talk about what this pandemic has exposed. So thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Randy. Thank you to my wonderful colleagues who are elevating this issue that has been ongoing in our city and in our state and in our nation. First of all, I want to say I welcome all the elected officials, all the official leaders who have suddenly now stood up and said that public schools and a supposed return to schools is the most important issue. Because we have waited for a long time to hear business leaders say that schools are core to the economic recovery. We have long waited for medical professionals to say that schools are core to the emotional health, not only of young people, but of families, of communities, and of a city. We have waited for a long time for legislators, not my dear friend Morgan Cephas or Senator Street or Senator Hughes, to stand up and put their money where their mouth is when we have talked about public school buildings, about facilities that belong back in the 19th century, for goodness sake, rather than the modern school buildings that our young people deserve. So we are here today, not to say we want a plan. There is a plan for a safe school reopening. There is a plan to get schools and young people back. It does not consist of a $20 fan from Home Depot. It does not consist of telling teachers that they have to go back with no classroom assistance. We haven't had any new information about testing protocols. We haven't talked about classroom assistance. We haven't talked about behavioral health supports for young people who have experienced trauma. We don't have medical specialists assigned to schools to contact trace and to answer questions from children and families. If we want schools to reopen, if they are so core to our economic health like all of us believe, then put your money where your mouth is and act like what school reopening ought to be, which it is the greatest public health marshaling of resources that we've got delivered to children and families. That is what a school reopening is. I want to talk very briefly about what a school reopening is not. We are burning down bridges to open schools for less than 6% of students who would go 2 days a week. There are 9,000 children who would qualify 2 days a week in grades K to 2. That is not a school reopening. We are moving and needing to move towards a school reopening that brings 130,000 children back to our public schools in 228 school buildings. That is what we should be working for. We should not be trying to make a point and claim a victory on a hybrid model that serves such a small fraction of kids. and leaving behind the bigger issue that we need to invest in a school reopening that builds trust, that sees our teachers and educators as partners, that puts our state legislators and our city officials and our federal government on the line to get the resources there. And the last thing I will say is that help is on the way. The Biden administration has said that they have a 100-day rollout for school reopening. That includes vaccinations, testing protocols, a massive federal relief package. We should be holding them accountable and planning accordingly. Second of all, the state of Pennsylvania and Governor Wolf, and I know Senator Hughes, our appropriations chair, has put on the table the biggest package for school funding that has existed to date. If this state legislature does not immediately stand up and demand that we support the governor's budget, then don't talk to us about school reopening. Don't tell us that our kids are your sacrifice when you won't stand up on a funding package that our kids have long deserved, and it is not just for us, it is across the state of Pennsylvania. And finally, to our elected, to our city leaders, it was the school district's responsibility to deliver a plan that would be supported by the communities and the people that they serve. That is the parents, that is the educators, that is the school staff. They are alone. This is the third attempt at a school reopening. We talked about this in August. We talked about this in the fall, and we are talking about it again in February. Please, this is not about what point you are going to prove. It's not about Pyrrhic victories on people's lives. This is a massive public health effort, and if we are to reopen schools, we are going to make a huge statement that we are invested in families, in the public health, and in the city of Philadelphia. Thank you to PFT. Thank you, Randy. Thank you to colleagues, and thank you especially to Gompers.
Yeah.
Here, I'll leave this for you.
Thank you. And now it is my pleasure to introduce the man who brings home the bacon. Appropriations Chair in the State Senate, and my State Senator, Vincent Hughes.
All right. No pressure. No pressure.
You can do it.
And that's the plan. So look, everybody, I knew when I checked the weather on Friday, and it said Monday would be the coldest day of the year, I knew there would be a PFT rally somewhere. I just knew that, all right? God bless us all, Randy. God bless us all. So a couple things.
It's not cultural laughter.
Yes. It makes it sit with you. As the son of a mother who worked for the school district of Philadelphia for 34 years, and Randy never missed a day of work in that entire 34 years, never took a vacation day in that entire 34 years, who just had her, I shouldn't say it, but I'm going to say it because it's mom, her 98th birthday last Thursday. And Hughes, thank you. Jerry, you know my mother well. All right? We got to understand just a couple things. First of all, we are in this thing together. There's no divide between parents and communities and teachers and schools. Teachers and all those who come into school buildings must be safe. And if they're safe, our children are safe. And their parents are safe. And everybody who's involved in that process is safe. We're all in this together. There would be some who would want to divide us, but we can't do that. We're in this fight together. And the fight is to beat the pandemic, to win on the pandemic, and to make our communities, which schools are central in, better than where they were before. That's the fight. And as Senator Street said, the vaccine is on the way. And in fact, Joe Biden has increased the number of vaccines. And he's made a level of predictability about when communities are going to get those vaccines. Communities know 3 weeks in advance when they're coming. So you know what? If we know 3 weeks in advance when they're coming, let's plan 3 weeks in advance to get our teachers and other folks in the line so that they can get access to those vaccines, so that they can be safe, and therefore our children and their family members are safe as well when they come back in these classrooms. I don't know how many emails I have gotten that said, let's use schools as vaccine centers. In fact, Representative Cephas, it was one of our constituents who lives up a couple of streets who sent me an email, said, that's what we did when we were young. We got our vaccines in the schools. And that meant everybody, council member, everybody, council members, everybody got their vaccines. Let's be smart about this. Let's be wise about this. Why rush it? We have waited this long. Why rush the process? Let's get it done, and let's get it done right. Because if we do it right, everybody is better. Everybody is better. And finally, let's say this. In a week or two, that $1.9 trillion package is going to get passed. And then when that $1.9 trillion package is going to get passed, there's going to be a lot of resources that are coming our way for education. But just this last week, we passed millions of dollars as well out of Harrisburg. And there's money coming for that as well. But also, and I'm glad you mentioned this, Councilmember, everybody, and Derek, you were there, we've been fighting this fight, started at the Edmonds School, if I remember correctly, and I think there's an event going on at Edmonds this morning. All right, that's the next stop. The governor laid out a very aggressive proposal, a transformational proposal in terms of funding education. If all of the things happen the way he laid it out, the school district of Philadelphia, listen up now, Randy, are you sitting down? All right? The school district of Philadelphia will receive another $357 million, Kendra, this school year, this year. And in terms of the construction piece, another $1 billion would come. $1 billion would be spread across the city, across the state to help rebuild our infrastructure. We cannot stop on this fight in front of Gompers School. We cannot stop here. We must raise this fight in Harrisburg and let communities know all across the city, all across the state, that if we say our children are number one, if we say our children are priorities, if we say we give a damn about our children, then we got to fight to make sure that they are in fact the priority. We're in this together, folks. This is how you build back better. This is how you make us stronger. We're not fighting against one another. We're embracing one another to win on this pandemic. I ain't going nowhere, PFT. I am right here with y'all, all right? And we're going to do whatever has to be done to bring this thing home. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. You know, each of us are a part of a family. And we've got our spouses, our...
Here comes Mom.
we have our siblings, we've got cousins, we have aunts and uncles. But in our AFT family, our leader, who has always been on the forefront fighting for good public education across this country. But she comes to Philadelphia so often in order to fight to make things better. She was here in Philadelphia fighting the closing of schools, and she got arrested at the board meeting for speaking out. Whenever we have had a battle here in Philadelphia, including this fight, you know, my big sister picked up the phone, called me, and said, "Jerry, what can I do? What do you need?" And we spent the weekend. She took the weekend, her weekend, to follow up and to talk and to do so much in order to turn things around here in Philadelphia. So it is my pleasure to bring to the mic the president of the American Federation of Teachers, my big sister. I'm taller, but she's the big sister. Randy Weingarten.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, bro.
Got it.
Oh, I think I'm just not going to use the notes. Sorry, whoever's, thank you. Sorry, whoever's mic that was. So, I do want that picture of the fan, though. I want you to see this. So, I taught at a school in Brooklyn called Clara Barton High School for the Health Professionals. It was started initially as a school for homemakers. It was started initially, old building, to teach people how to be domestic workers. Obviously, it changed. When I taught there, it was a great career tech ed school, which we had to fight to maintain. My kids, all black and brown kids, went through AP governor courses at this career tech ed school, won debates on the civil rights, on the Bill of Rights. In the period of time, as Helen said, in the 90s, that people didn't give much care in the business community about schools. We were fighting for every single drop. We were fighting to get rid of asbestos in this beautiful old building. We're fighting for that infrastructure. We were fighting against disinvestment. I used to say we had to scavenge for chalk. And where was the business community then? Where were others then? Pretty silent. Because these were schools for other people's children. What we're fighting for now, and it is good, and Helen is right. Sorry, I should say Councilwoman Ginn. Helen is right. that it is good that everyone now understands that public education is important. It's important for our children. It's important for our communities. It's important for our economy. Now, let's actually fund it and make it so instead of saying it rhetorically. Woo! Woo! And the first thing we need to do in the middle of a pandemic is to create confidence, not distrust. We had enough distrust with Donald Trump. We do not need it with Bill Haidt. Yeah. And confidence means you create a plan that works on paper and works in reality, that parents and educators can stand by, and you create the transparency to deal with that. And it's not as if the school system has to make it up afresh. As Arthur said, we at the AFT have been working on this since April, almost a year ago. And frankly, the new CDC director, the new President of the United States, other cities, we have a blueprint. We need to use it here. And that blueprint it does not include these fans. When I first saw these fans, frankly, when I first saw it, I thought it was a SNL parody.
Yeah.
I really thought I really thought somebody was saying this was a parody from SNL, from Saturday Night Live. Because anyone who knows anything about ventilation, and look, I'm a social studies teacher, not a science teacher, but I call the experts. What do these do? Even the manufacturer says that you shouldn't use them in this way. If you use them in schools this way, you're going to actually freeze children and teachers because you'll be opening the window so wide that on a day like this, it will be freezing in classrooms. They are an electrical nightmare, and I can go on and on and on. It is a mockery, and it's incredibly disrespectful to even think that something like this would fly in our communities. Do you think that the NFL would have used these? Do you think that any business that is open right now would use these? So why would we do this to our children and to our educators? There is a plan. These amazing senators told you. The amazing representatives here told you. It starts with dealing with the virus, making sure we have mitigation strategies in schools, having the testing and the tracing, aligning vaccine distribution with people coming back to schools, and having the resources for it. That's what other cities are now doing. That's what was just negotiated in San Francisco and in Chicago. That's what New York City has been doing for months now. And that is why I'm here today. And that is why the educators are out on the streets today.
Yes.
This city needs to actually follow the common sense that these council people and other elected officials are saying. And we are walking the streets today to get that done. Teachers and kids deserve safety. And we deserve to have schools that are open, that are safe. So I'm asking Philadelphia, I'm asking anyone who is watching this right now, if other cities can do this, I know this city can do this, but it takes the superintendent to sit down with Jerry Jordan to work out a plan and to do it now. That would be the way in which you respect the children and the educators and the community in Philadelphia. Thank you.
Woo! Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Randy.
Thank you, Mom.
Thank you. Thank you for the sign.
Thank you so much, Randy. She's always here for us. I thank you all for coming out this morning. We are now headed to FS Edmonds for our next stop, and we will be going through the city today, making a number of stops and talking to our members. You're welcome to join us at each location. Thank you again. Thank you.
Yep.